I told you I was bringing Francisco back for another episode. This time, we're talking about what makes our partnership work and hopefully can help you if you're in a partnership. Welcome back to another episode of the Trepreneur Show. As promised, here's Francisco Rodriguez, my buddy, partner, friend, and sales guru. And of course, Tanya Priest, co-hosting with me.
Hey, everybody.
So, listen, we kind of ended up, the last episode we were talking, not intentionally, it just kind of went a certain direction. And I let you know, you said something in the end of that last episode about, sometimes, because we're in the building, the same building, and sometimes we see each other briefly. Sometimes we really don't see each other at all.
I think the most we see each other is the huddle.
Yeah, in the morning huddle. And, sometimes we sit down and we have regular talks and long talks and things like that. But through the course of the day, you've got your responsibilities and I got mine, and we execute, we carry them out. And we may not actually have that sit down every day. Sometimes, and sometimes I believe people like you alluded to, might think we don't even like each other or even talk to each other, but that's actually not the case.
Yeah.
So
very true.
To me, or I guess for me, my question to you would be, how's it been being in a partnership?
I mean, I think for me, it's been a great learning experience, especially when at one point, if you recall, which I think is the biggest mistake we made as partners, is in the beginning of our partnership, you were trying to be me and I was trying to be a hard ass like you. Not that you are, but I was trying to take your approach that doesn't fit me and my style. And we went to that, to the training on personalities, on knowing, how you are as a person. And it really helped identify that. They're like, look, Francisco, all you got to do is stop trying to be Patrick, and Patrick, stop trying to be Francisco, and you guys will work things out. But I think one of the things for me that really helped me was really understanding what your strengths are and what my strengths are. And the reason that, Frank chose us as partners. And once I realized that, everything changed. My days were, shorter, everything, because in the beginning, we're just, starting, it's frustrating. Yeah. Because, I'm like, well, why is he making that decision? That's dumb. And then I might do something, you're like, well, why is he doing that, making that decision? But really understanding our strengths. And I think the other thing, too, that makes a great partnership, especially for you and I, is look, there's going to be times that you don't agree with what I do, and I'm not going to agree with what you do. That's okay. But we got to be in alignment that once we leave that room, that we have the same alignment, that we're going to be able to deliver the same message to our team.
Yeah. That is critical. Yeah. And that was something that Frank would teach us, and he would teach anybody. And that was, to the extent that he would say, listen, if he would bring you in his office and you would have a discussion and he wanted you to do something a certain way, and you could disagree with him and you could challenge him, but once you left that office,
you owned it.
You owned it. And it was never Frank said, or because Frank wants this. It was, I am doing this because you're carrying out the orders. And we talk about this as a team, commander's intent, right? And so that's exactly it. You own it. If you disagree,
you got to speak about right there.
Yeah.
And I think, that would be the next episode. I'll give you an idea for, especially for managers just starting out. That I see it happen is we go to a meeting and we discuss something that we need done. And then the message comes back out. Well, Patrick and Francisco said they want this done, which that, literally takes all their credibility, their power away, because they're like, well, you're just a puppet. You're not doing anything. You're not making any decisions. Yeah. Right. Which should be like, look, we talked about this, and the decision I came up with, or we came up as a team, that we're going to move forward together with this idea. Or this process, or whatever it may be.
And it also communicates to your team that there's not alignment.
Right.
Correct.
That is right.
If there's alignment, it's a unified team that believes in the action that's going to be carried out.
In the mission.
Or what's going to happen, right? Well, when you say they or he or she wants this, you've now just said, look, I'm just, to your point, I'm just a pawn. I'm just carrying out orders. I don't, you're more like, you want to be in that happy place where I'm like, I get it, guys. I don't, this is tough. I don't really like it either, but this is what they want me to do, and so I have to do it. And it's like, to your point, you just gave up power.
Absolutely.
You just gave up control. You just gave up authority. You just gave up everything that you've been entrusted to be and do. You've just given up and have not taken ownership.
Correct.
And I will tell you, that was one of the many great things that I learned from Frank Harrison. And so it's once you make a decision, you own it.
Yeah,
and it's your decision. It's our decision. And that's where you and I will, we have those talks where we disagree.
And the other thing that, makes us great partners that, we do communicate and we do trust each other on, calling us out on different things. Because I remember like early on when we were first owners and I would make snap decisions for the sales team. And you would sit down with me. I remember we were having private, together you were coaching me through it, because you had more managerial experience. And you would be like, look, Francisco, one of the mistakes that you're making is that you're not even thinking about, you're just thinking about the change you want to do as, we want to do as a company or as a, sales department.
Yeah.
But how's it going to impact that, the team tomorrow, next week, next year, a year from now as we grow up? But most importantly, how are you going to track it?
Yeah.
And what do you have in place to be able to track it to make sure that it's being executed? And if you don't have that in place, you sound like a crazy person. I would go into the sales team and we're like, we're going to make a change today. And this is a way moving forward. And then there was no process or anything in place. And then about a week or 2 weeks later, it's gone. Yep. And then I would come with another crazy idea. And it's like, today we're going to do this.
And what happens is you become that person. They're like, don't worry about it.
In 2 weeks, it's going to go away.
Yeah. And so I remember those conversations. My whole thing was, if you're going to implement something, look, I think that's a great idea. I 100% support it. Make sure you communicate it properly. Make sure once it's implemented, you can sustain it. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't sustain it, you become like the little boy who cried wolf, right? And then you lose credibility. So that's whether you're a business owner or manager. To me, that is so important. And sometimes I get criticized by other people I know, friends, business owners, mentors, and sometimes people think I'm slow to make decisions. Now, I make decisions very quickly, and I can make decisions quickly with very little information. I've learned over the years that although I'd made a decision and this is the direction I want to go, there's going to be ripples of that decision, and I don't need to know how to prevent the ripples. I just need to make sure I know what the ripples are, and we've got everything in place to mitigate the things we don't want to happen from happening.
Right.
And then I need to make sure that we can sustain the process, because a lot of times I'll put something in place. I'm not going to be the person sustaining it.
Right.
Right. I need to make sure the team has the ability and the resources to sustain it. So there's a lot that goes into it. I will say with us is when we have our closed door talks, which a closed door talk could be a text. Mm-hmm. It could be, literally us sitting down. It's
Remember our first argument?
Oh, so tell our listeners about our first argument.
Which it was a great argument. It was the middle of summer. We are selling like crazy units left and right, and everybody is calling Patrick like, look, you got to tell Francisco stop, and telling people we're going to do the installs tomorrow, and then so happens to be we had a comfort advisor laid out in the evening. And I remember it was in Rancho Mirage, sells 2 units. And then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to do it tomorrow. We'll figure out a way. And then once they called in to say that I authorize another install, everybody's blowing up your phone saying like, you got to put a stop to this. And then you're like, look, if you want to sell installs for the next day, then you and I are going to go install them. And we went and installed the next day.
Well, that's a whole story in itself, but I was getting a lot of pressure from the team because, Patrick, we get it, we get it, but we can't get these installs in. And then it was kind of like, okay, we won't sell anymore for tomorrow. Next thing you know, he sells another job for tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God. So I called and I lit you up.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we come in the next day. I believe, was it on Saturday?
It was a Saturday. Yeah, it was Friday.
We come in, and so I'm like, listen, I'm going to go out on an install. I'm going to go out on the install.
The worst install. I'm going to go to the duct work.
The least favorite. So I go out on a duct job, right? Now, look at me. I'm not Tiny Tim. So I go out on this duct job, and I'm in an attic removing duct work. And literally, I'll never forget coming across the dead rat, which, is a reality of the job. I'm like, son of a gun, man. Like, and then he goes out on a job.
It was a mini split.
A mini
hard
split.
one. It was hard too.
So I got pictures sent to me later in the afternoon. I finally get out of the attic. We're waiting on some more material, and we're just kind of getting a breather, catching our breath, and getting some hydration. And these pictures come through, and it's Francisco and this other guy installing this mini split. They got a tent set up for shade. They got a little cooler.
I got a cooler. I utilize my resources. I called the warehouse. I'm like, look, you got to go to Home Depot. You got to get us a tent. You got to get a cooler. And I know they have Gatorade there. Get Gatorades, fill a cooler full of... Oh, like we're having a picnic.
They look like they were shade tree mechanics working on a car on the weekend. And I'm in this attic just sweating and whatnot. But we got through it.
Yeah.
We got through it. And then, and you know, we haven't really had arguments.
No.
We have disagreements. And one of the things I learned as being a partner, so I'm a very high D. I'm a very like driver, and that's what talking about earlier. I want to go in my office. I want to push out work. I want to go out. I can be like a drill sergeant. Boom, boom, boom. It's about the process. It's about the results, and people are a means to get it done. And that doesn't mean I don't like people and I don't care about people. It just means like, hey, listen, this is our objective. We got to take the hill, and so we're going to do what we need to take the hill. And I'm going to be very direct about it. And I can literally walk up to you in the morning and just start talking about what needs to be done. And I literally did it one day. I walked into the warehouse and there's a kid working there. It's a Monday morning, and I said, hey, listen, boo, 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 boo. And he's like, he just stared at me. And when I stopped talking, he said, good morning, Patrick.
Yes.
And I was like, son of a bitch.
Yes.
I said, good morning.
Yeah.
How was your weekend? Right? And I was like, and it's not that I didn't care about this kid. But I was in work mode.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like going, and I'm like, hey, we're here. Let's get this done. And he reminded me, like, sometimes I got to change my perspective. So I changed it so much that I was running around the office. Hey, how you doing? Like, I was like a mayor. Right? And then you were trying to take more of the hard line with me, but you're the lighthearted guy. You're the one that really brings a lot of laughter and positive energy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we do this culture index thing, and literally it tells you who you are and then how you adjust in your work environment. So here I am over here. Mine, I think, just said asshole. And then down here, it was like totally different. And it tells you like how, if you came to work with a tank of gas, how much of that gas you're using in the day. And I was burning a lot, right? And the idea is your work or who you are naturally and who you are at work should try and be as close to aligned as possible. And you were who you are here, and then at work you were like. And so when you looked at who you were at work versus who you are normally, and who I am at work and who you are normally, we like mine looked like who you were normally, and that's why I was burning so much fuel, because it's like the guy said to me, he's like, Patrick, stop walking around saying hello to everybody. Just deliver results. That's where you're the strongest. Well, that's somewhat practical.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you still, when you're leading an organization, you've got to interact and communicate with the team. People that know me, Tanya's one, some of the other team that knows me, and you know me, like, no, he's not mad. You know what I mean? And people will want to come talk to me. And they'll always be like, I remember a teammate we had for many years, still a very good friend of mine. They would go and she'd say, go talk to him. Go into his office and talk to him. And they'd come into my office and they'd leave and they'd be like, he is so nice. And I'd be like, and she would say, well, what do you think he was going to do? Well, he looks grumpy. He looks mean, but he's really nice. He really cares about me. I'm like, yes, I do. I just don't. It's kind of like the Trading Places. You ever see the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy? Mm-hmm. And he's in the jail, and they said, "Hey, if all this happened, how come you're not bleeding?" And he's like, "Because Karate Man bleeds on the inside, it doesn't bleed on the outside, right?"
And one thing that just came to mind that I was just thinking about right now, like with our communication and how we communicate with one another, I think being partners, really understanding how you communicate and what your communication style is from one to like between you and myself, is super important, because if you pay attention, if I go into your office, like 99% of the time, I'm not going to sit down because I know how you communicate. So usually our conversations are going to be between 45 seconds to a minute and a half. If, as an example, there's an issue. I'm going to tell you what the issue is, what we're going to do to resolve the issue. And then I might need a little bit of support or whatever it may be. And you're like, okay, that's fine. But then when you come into my office, because you know I communicate a little different, there's not a time that you come into my office that you don't sit down, because I'm just more like lean back and let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you paid attention to that, but that's
so true.
Yeah.
I've
No,
seen it.
it is. And I do know, because when I go into your office, it's more, I approach you the way you interact. And you're right. So explain to our listeners, like, when I'm checked out, right?
Oh yeah.
What do I do?
You'll be on the, say he's meeting with, it could be, and it doesn't matter who it is. And you're having a conversation, and literally he'll just turn around and start working on his computer. Or he'll be moving with his pad.
The mouth. And I'm like, yeah,
He's like, done.
yeah, that's not enough. Like, I should just say, excuse me, we're done.
Yeah.
At my office. But he'll know. He'll be like, okay, he's not paying attention to anything I'm saying right now.
Yes.
But you're right. Reading each other, understanding each other. Like, and I know this, and this frustrates the hell out of me with Francisco, but I know this about him. If I go to him and I have an issue, a complaint, help I need, or anything, especially the bigger the thing is, the more this is going to happen, he'll just stare at me. Like, there's no expression, right?
Oh yeah.
And I know a lot of times I'm not going to get an answer. And if I expect an answer and I push you for an answer, it's going to be, and it's not really going to be an answer, because I know you internalize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you need that time. And it drives me crazy, because I'm like, let's go, right? But I also know that's not how you operate. So I'll do something, and then I'll usually say something like, okay, well, you know what, just let me know where we want to go with this. And if it's pressing, I'll say, listen, I need to know by the end of the day, or whatever. And sometimes I would just say, hey, it's information I want to share with you. And then at some point, when you've processed it, you'll come to me and say, hey, or we'll have the conversation later. But I know that about you, right? Just like, when you come to me, like, if you need help, you better tell me what you need help.
Yes, like there's no way to, like, don't try to, make it all kinds of nonsense conversation. How's your day, Patrick? Oh, did you watch football yesterday? Like, you're like, I don't care. Freaking just get to the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've worked for you guys for 13 years. I've worked with you guys outside of ownership, and I've watched you go into ownership, and I've seen the relationship grow. And what's really cool and amazing is that you guys may disagree on the outside. None of us ever see it. Like, I personally always see alignment and accountability. So each of you have taken accountability as owners as well with us as a team. And I think that that's really huge. And I think it's important for employees to see ownership take that. So I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a statement as somebody who's seen you guys grow. And I see the relationship get stronger and stronger through the years. And I think it's really important. And some of the things that you're sharing today, other owners of other businesses should hear and understand that you have to know your person. You have to know your partnership and who each other are.
Well, and I believe a business partnership's a lot like a marriage in some ways, in the sense that when you have a marriage, both parties in that marriage or that relationship, they know what their roles are, right? My wife, she knows there's certain things, like, she's not going to ask me, can you do this or do that? Because that's just not me, right? She knows that I'm going to take care of this and make sure this is done, and this is done, and she'll handle this, and that. Yeah. And and you just evolve. You just kind of know, and strengths, weaknesses, and over time. Business, it's a little different, because there's this. Well, marriage has a legal structure too, but it's different. And so we work together. Once we came into the role, I will share. I believe that if you have somebody and you want to go into a partnership with somebody, some of the best advice I got was, all your agreements, all your buy, sell, and all of those type of things, operating agreements, do them in good times. Because those are not the things you want to figure out when the relationship goes sour, when you're pissed at each other, when the business is struggling. Do them in good times. Do them in happy times, when you're going into the business and you want to take over the world. If you wait and you get into a challenge and a struggle, like you're in different places.
Because it's an emotional thing.
It becomes emotional, correct. So the other thing is know the roles and responsibilities. So Frank Harrison put us together to buy the business from him when he wanted to retire, because he wanted the business to continue on. And he'll tell you, he says, look, I put you guys together, Patrick. You can do things that Francisco can't do, and Francisco can do things you can't do. He's like, Patrick, you can run the business. You can do the day-to-day, the operations, that type of stuff. Francisco can sell and deliver results and do the things that drive the value of the business. Keep the business, the lights on. Because look, if we're not producing revenue, then we ain't keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
So, and I've known a lot of business owners through the years, in the trades and outside the trades, that there's some, there's the ones that kind of do the operating stuff, the CEO stuff, and then the ones that might be doing sales. We know a business owner where the one guy loves to sell. He doesn't want anything to do with
the business.
And when we get together and have business meetings, he'd go ride with techs.
Yeah.
And that's what he was really good at, and that was his contribution. But it's when you try and develop strengths that you don't have.
Right.
And that you're not even passionate about.
And you're not even passionate about. Correct. Yeah. And so that's really important, is understanding the roles and responsibilities. And I believe when we first got into business together, you said earlier, I would make decisions. You're like, why is he making that decision? And I'm like, I'm making a decision because that falls under my roles and responsibilities. What I've gotten better at least I think I got better. You might be like, he fucks at this. But I do a much better job, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, of communicating what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it. And then getting your input on it. And then there's times I go to you and
and I'll tell you, because back in, it hasn't happened like in years, but in the beginning, like you would make a decision that I knew nothing about, and then a manager or somebody would come to me and say, you guys are going to be doing this. And then I would never say like, no, I don't know. Patrick never told me.
Always a lie.
I would be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. And then I would be like, hey, we're going to do this. So I could get the information, on how to proceed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was very much about just executing, just making it happen. And I knew even with Frank would have me I would just carry things out. Like if I was changing hours or adding hours, reducing hours, whatever, he'd just like, okay, as long as it was in alignment with the company he built.
And I think that's what makes us really good partners. And also too, Frank helped, develop that, that relationship, and then us, eventually become partners. But if you recall, one of the things that, with Frank, he never had to worry about how the business was operating, because you and I were in alignment on making sure that the business was running properly. I remember one of those things too, you go to a trade show with him, and you and I knew that if Frank said, hey, as an example, have you guys checked that new UV light? To us, that was a code for, you better get all the information. I'm going to talk about it when we get back to the office, and I want to know how we're going to proceed with this.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be like, hey, I want you to look at it. He would just be like, hey, have you seen that? But that was already code for, you better.
I'm interested in this, and do the right things.
Research it, make sure it's the right, it's going to fit our needs.
Yeah.
I want to tie things back to what you'd said earlier, Francisco, about having a leadership team, and how do we filter now the partnership that you guys have? How do we filter this now down to leadership in our organization to think and align the way that the two of you are aligned? I mean, I know it's a loaded question. Maybe that's another episode.
No,
we talked about it a little bit earlier, and I think it's such a key point of having a successful business.
It goes back to when we did our offsite, and I shared commander's intent.
Yes.
All right, the commander's intent. Now I've learned even more about commander's intent. Commander's intent. The Prussians were a big, pretty powerful military. It's about 300 years ago. They came up with this, and now the Prussians are the ones that George and his troops crossed the Delaware and kicked their ass on Christmas Eve. So they kind of screwed up there. You don't party on Christmas Eve when George Washington's in charge. And I just learned this part of it. I've been familiar with commander's intent and what it is, but this was the history. And it is, they were like, okay, when we're in the battlefield and we're trying to maneuver and we're trying to be agile, right? How do we do that when the battlefield is always changing, the terrain is changing? And so there was a lot of debate, and it was like, well, listen, you got to let the troops and the lower level officers make these decisions and not have to wait for authority and higher command to get back to them. And then there was other ones that were like, well, we can't, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. They don't know what decisions to make. Okay, well, here's commander's intent. That's where they came up with commander's intent. And it's a lot like what I talked about in the last episode, whereas if you working at the hospital, patients, employees, hospital first with the information you have at hand. So it's pretty much the same thing. What is the mission of the organization?
Right.
What is the mission of not just the organization, but whatever you're happening to work on? And let's say you got teams out doing installs, whatever they're installing, and they're on an all-day job, and they can't get a hold of somebody, and they run into a scenario. Well, commander's intent comes into play, because what is the mission? What are the visions and values of the company, and what is the objective for this install, and how it aligns with the company? You're going to make decisions in alignment with that. All right. So really making sure the mission is clear, the vision is clear. If you have core values, making sure they're clear, and everybody understands. So one of ours is accountable.
Right.
Well, what is accountable? And does it mean the same thing to everybody? Because if you think being held accountable is a negative thing, and this person thinks it's a positive thing, they're going to have different views of what being accountable.
Or you just want to hold somebody accountable, but not hold yourself accountable.
Well, and there you're in violation of the core principle, right? But so if you have commander's intent and you have a leadership team that understands what the mission is and knows how to operate within the parameters to accomplish that, and the alignment has to be there. So managers should never point fingers at another manager or department.
You got to be unified.
Got to be unified. That's for meetings. That's for private one-to-ones. That's where you get in, you close the door, and you say, hey, listen, you son of a bitch, I do not agree with what you're doing. You're out of line. This is inappropriate. Blah, 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 blah. This is how we should be doing things. Okay, great. You have those moments.
Behind
those
the
are
scenes.
healthy.
But nobody outside knows
Correct.
about it.
But don't go out and be like, well, that department never does anything right. You're asking
I'm always
for
cleaning up.
Yeah.
And you know what happens? That has such a negative impact in the culture of the organization, which I think that's the worst thing you could damage is the culture.
Well, and when you see that behavior, it's usually there's an underlying cause, and to me, there's somebody that's insecure. They're insecure as a manager, as a leader, whatever, just an individual, and they're trashing somebody else. Mm-hmm. It's like when the competition trashes the competition's insecure. We'll fire you for trashing the competition.
Right.
Do not trash the competition. The competition is irrelevant to us, right?
That's right?
And don't trash the competition. If they trash us, let them trash us. If that's how somebody has to operate. But
never get to that level.
Never get to that level. Focus on what we can do and how we can be better. Focus on being a good member of an organization, a contributing member. Make sure you're aligned and you communicate. Him and I get out of alignment, right? We get out of alignment. We have talks back and forth, and we get pissed, and he'll come at me hard with something. I'll come at him hard with something. And probably the one thing that he's much better at than me is just being tight-lipped and just coming directly to me and saying, okay, this, that, the other thing. Where I can get a little bit, I hate to use the word emotional, but a little bit more emotional. Right. I'm not the stone face that he could be. Like you could, like right now, I don't know if he's happy or pissed. Nowadays, happy. But he can look at me and I'm like, man, I don't know if he's mad or happy or what. And then because he really can cover his emotions well. Me, you just think I'm pissed off all the time, right? Most of the time. But it's just stuff you have to evolve. And the partnership is a journey.
It is.
The leadership team is a journey. And you've got to understand, especially when you have a leadership team, you have people at different levels of experience, right? Whether they have, experience in the industry, experience leading.
Right.
And so you're gonna get a manager that's like, we have one right now that's just got it dialed in. Like you can tell they've been around the block. They know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that manager will also say, I wasn't always like this. I've learned through the years. That's me. I learned I was a complete asshole. That I was a super nice person. And I mean, I tried everything. And who you see now when I'm there, that's formed over a lot of losses and wins on my personal level to evolve to this place here. And I'm still going.
Yeah.
Right. And so you get a manager that's here and has this experience level, and you got one that's this experience level. They're both capable. They're both in that role, but they're.
And what happens is, I think, like you're saying, that other manager, sometimes it becomes insecure. Are they trying to take my job? Instead of looking up to that manager, be like, oh, they've already been through this. They're going to help me out, get myself to a different level.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's another lesson. Back at that hospital I talked about in the last episode, lesson I learned there, Paolo Memorial Hospital, the guy who ran the engineering department, Chris Ruiz, he would say a couple things to me. And he would say the one thing would be like, you never fuck a fucker, right? And I know that's crude, but the French comes out, and he's like, I'm the biggest fucker of them all, so don't mess with me, right? And that was kind of his like late 80s, early 90s, like way of saying like, listen, don't just shoot me straight, just be straight up, and don't try and get one over on me.
But just imagine, like, I was just thinking about it just came to me, like, imagine like how important that is to a growing organization. Like, and I'll use us as an example. Like, we're growing right now. Yep. And imagine if we have managers that are not in alignment, like they're literally going to be fighting our growth amongst one another instead of the competition or, somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's, it creates, a bottleneck where it's not letting us grow because they're, going against one another and not, rolling in the same direction. Yeah.
Yep. So true. And that goes back to the insecurity thing. Mm-hmm. And what you were saying, and somebody thinking, hey, I might lose my job. They'll take my job. And I've been there. I know what that feeling's like. And that's an internal insecurity, right? That same manager taught me. He said, listen, he says, Patrick, whenever you get an opportunity, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, the first thing you should do is find your replacement. He says, immediately start finding who can replace you. It doesn't matter if you're just like if you're out there working in the engineering department and I've got you, doing this or that, find somebody that can do that and start teaching them how to do your job.
Are you duplicating yourself?
When you become a manager, find somebody that can manage as well as you, if not better. He said most people, what they do is they hoard stuff. And I've seen so many people, they hoard stuff and everything's secret, and because it's job security. So if nobody knows how to do my job, they can't take my job. That's operating from a tremendous place of insecurity. His message was, if nobody else can do your job, I can't promote you. I can't give you another opportunity because who's going to do your job? So if I know you're training other people to do your role and to step in and do what you're doing, one, I know you're secure. I know you're capable. I know you can develop somebody. You can find people. And now I can promote you because you've already trained your replacement. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, you're stuck. So it was so many lessons that you can take from life, from previous employers. And that's what I think is really, really important, is always be learning, always be taking lessons. And, lessons, we all have mentors, right? Whether they know they're a mentor of ours or not, because they're either an author or somebody we watch in podcasts, trade promotion, or it's somebody out and about, but you might not even have met them, but they're still mentoring you. We also have to understand that we can learn so much from those that know less than us.
Absolutely. And I think, what's so important is like, look, you got to be a student. And guess what? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes. Very well.
You might want to write that one.
I'm going to write that one down.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, let's pull the transcript on this one. It's true. It's true. And as an individual, I believe you have to have the mindset of a learner.
Absolutely.
To always learn. As a business,
you got to be learning.
You've got to always be learning. And, there's this guy, Al Dunlap. He was brought in to turn around Scott Paper. And he came in and he actually did some pretty amazing things. How he wasn't a popular guy because he did hard things to turn around these businesses. But he used to say, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you rot.
Oh, wow.
So when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you rot. So always be green, always be learning, always be a student, because the true master is a student first. Thanks for watching us. Thanks for listening to us. Anywhere you can find podcasts. We're on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. We really appreciate the support. Like, share, comment, really helps us. Till next time, be well.